All right, let's start this all over again. I just found out that you guys cannot hear us. So welcome to the APFA Negotiations Town Hall. Today we have all of the negotiators here with us, minus one, and two officers, Eric Harris, our treasurer, and Josh Black, our secretary, is also on. And then Joe Burns, our lead negotiating attorney, is also here with us today. We're all here to answer questions for you. Also, we're going to kind of walk through where we're at in the negotiation process and a few other items. So first, before we get started, I want to remind everyone how important it is every time you come to work and you put your uniform on that you have on your union pin, your lanyard that says we are ready. We are wearing those until we have a contract. And you all should have received 2 bag tags from us. Please make sure those are on your bags. It's really important for you to be wearing those, and especially the union pin, to wear that every time you go to work, no matter if we're in negotiations or not. I just want to let everyone know that we have passed every section of this contract to the company at this point. So at this time, we are not really taking suggestions as to what we should be negotiating for, because we have already passed every single section and we are working to get those improvements that we have already proposed, agreed to. So I know a lot of the questions today were suggestions as to what we should be negotiating for. And so some of those, they might not get answered, or we might answer it in the way that we've already proposed that. So just want to make sure you realize that where we are at in this process is we have taken the suggestions from the surveys, also all of the emails that have been sent to the negotiating team over the past few years. So we did get a lot of other questions today. We want to remind everyone, this is your union. Some of the questions actually were titled to someone in the company, and we want to make sure that you realize this is a union town hall. This is APFA. This is not a company question, but we do encourage you to ask those questions of the company, especially when they have a town hall like they did earlier today. They give you the opportunity to ask questions of them. We want to encourage you to make sure you ask those questions to the company that were sent to us today. I want to remind you also, this was targeted negotiations, which means that we looked at every section and we are looking to get improvements in sections, but we are not rewriting this contract. And so we have put all of our the bullet points out there for you to know what we have proposed and what the priorities were for the union and for our membership. And those are on the website. All right, so right now I want to kind of go through a process here. We want to talk a little bit about making sure you are in good standing so that your vote counts. And I have Eric Harris here with us today to kind of walk you through the website and how you can check for yourself to see if you are in good standing. So Eric, you want to take it from here and let's go walk through this.
Hello, everyone. So you want to know what it means to be in good standing. Good standing means that you are dues current, and dues current means that you have not had a balance greater than 60 days. So your balances are paid up. Anything over 60 days, past due 60 days, is considered arrears, and that will put you in bad standing. So we're going to walk you through the website to find out what your status is. So we'll log into the APFA website.
So apfa.org.
You will click the login button at the top right corner. If you do not know your login information, please select forgot your password. We'll ask your information, confirm your email address, and send you a temporary password for you to log in. If you do not have an email address on file with us, you will have to email membership@apfa.org, ask them to add your email address on, and come back and do the same process. So Josh is going to log in, show you what it looks like. When you hit log in, it will take you back to the home page, and you'll see in the top right corner, the options change to my account and log out. We will select my account. It should take you to your account. And on the account screen, you will see your total balance and your arrears balance. The difference between total balance and arrears balance is that the balance you see here, $205 is your total balance due, and $123 of this person is beyond 60 days. So that balance is in arrears, and this member would be in bad standing based on that amount. If you go to the My Membership screen, you will see more information about your eligibility. You look under My Standing, it will say, are you eligible to vote or participate? And if it says yes, you are good to go. If it says no, you are not eligible, you need to take care of your account. To take care of your account and pay your balance, you will go to the My Account screen and select Make a Payment. And there you can make a payment via credit card or bank account. And that will immediately update your account. And to change and update any information, you can select under My Profile, Change Information, and here you can update your mailing address and opt in or out of the text messaging service and subscribe to hotlines and base briefs there as well.
Great. And I think right now, why we really wanted to make sure that we could show them how to opt into text messaging is we will be sending out texts. We won't send out too many. We know that we don't want to give you too many texts, but about important dates that we may have. If we have a town hall, we might send you a text to say, hey, we're going to have a town hall. If we have a strike vote, we may be texting you to remind you of that strike vote date and to make sure that you get your vote in. So we just want to make sure that you know how to do this and that you can go to the website and update everything there.
Yes.
Okay, Eric, I have a question for you. This came into the negotiators, but since you're here, you get to answer it. Why are service managers calling flight attendants about APFA dues arrears?
Great question. So APFA, first of all, our contract is governed under the Railway Labor Act, as you may already know. And under that, our flight attendants, or APFA, is a closed shop, meaning that every American Airlines flight attendant must pay dues to the union. It is also a condition of employment, and Section 35 of the contract of the JCPA outlines those conditions. And if you are in dues arrears, or you go dues arrears, you are subject to termination. And if you have received a phone call from your FSM, more than likely you have been sent an alert letter, and an alert letter is sent when you have gone into arrears, and you have 30 days to pay your arrears balance. The company has taken it upon themselves to have the FSM contact you after a certain amount of time to let you know that you're in dues arrears, because this is an agreement between American Airlines and APFA, and they also have an obligation to uphold the language in Section 35.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate you being here today to answer those questions. All right. We also want to remind everyone that tomorrow our contract action team members, and if you've signed up for the contract action team, we hope that you've had the opportunity to join them tomorrow. If you want to join them tomorrow, please look in your emails or your text to see if you received an email from them to show up and talk to flight attendants about what's happening in negotiations today. They will also have lanyards, pins, and bag tags with them tomorrow to make sure our flight attendants all have those available. All right, we're going to go to one more thing, and this is going to kind of lead us into Joe Burns' discussion about the strike vote. And let's go, Josh, to the chart of where we are at today in Section 6 negotiations. This is just a reminder, and this will be on the website hopefully later today. But this shows where we are. We have requested mediation on March 3rd. And our first date that we will be meeting with the mediators and the company is June 26th. So this shows you where we're at in the process and kind of where we're headed. So Joe, that leads up to you, and let's talk about where we're at and where we're headed to.
Let's see. Hello, everybody. So I'm just going to give a little bit of an update on kind of overall where we're at and the next steps, including a possible strike vote. So many of you may have seen the communication that was sent out yesterday, and if not, please check it out, which was alerting flight attendants to the high probability of there being a strike vote related to these contract negotiations. You know, we have passed all sections of the agreement to the company. We have passed the economic proposal about a month or two ago, guess a couple months ago. And so now basically, you know, most of the sections have been bargained over. The company has our economic demands in their hands, and at least on that piece, the ball is in their court. We anticipate that we are going to be, you know, have a substantial gulf on, you know, what we're fighting for and where the company sees us ending up. And we also know that many of the sections we were able to reach a lot of improvement, but there's many important issues that it's going to take pressure. So in terms of a little bit on the timing of a strike vote, you know, I think as you see from the chart, under the Railway Labor Act, in order to strike or engage in other forms of what's called self-help, the union must first engage in a period of mediation, the union and the company, under the auspices of the National Mediation Board. This is a mandatory part of the process, and what it means is that we are unable to strike or get a release to strike unless we have been in mediation. So in terms of the timing of the strike vote, you know, I think it's important to us that when we do take a strike vote, that it be considered a so-called real strike vote, and that it be intended to be a step towards being released to strike. So that's why timing-wise, it's important for us to at least spend some time in mediation before we hold the strike vote. Otherwise, it becomes more of a symbolic effort rather than an actual step to strike. It's also important that people know, you know, exactly where we are at in bargaining. We've been very transparent, but one of the pieces that we're waiting for is to get the company's economic proposal. They're currently costing it and so forth, and we expect, you know, somewhere around the end of June or in July, we should be getting that proposal, and then we'll have a clearer idea of just how far apart we are. I mean, we have a pretty good idea where we're going to be, but that'll be a little bit more concrete. So our mediators coming has been assigned, is coming at the end of June. We have dates through September, and we're going to be scheduling further dates, you know, throughout the fall. We'll be, you know, so I think once we get into mediation, I think there'll be determination about when and if to take a strike vote. And, you know, that's a process that involves full information to all the flight attendants. You know, what does a possible strike look like? You know, answering everyone's questions. You know, I think the goal with any strike vote in the airline industry and others is to get the participation rate and the vote for a strike vote super high. So it sends a message of unity and resolve to the company. I know there'll be some questions about, you know, can we even strike because we're under the Railway Labor Act? And, you know, frankly, we're the Railway Labor Act as written gives the right to strike to airline workers who have to undergo a period of mediation, as I said. But following that process, according to the text of the law, we're supposed to be able to strike. You know, I think in the last decade and a half, we've seen a difficulty in getting the National Mediation Board to grant releases. You know, at AFA, we regularly take strike votes regardless, and we get our deals, and other unions, ALPA and the, you know, APA has recently taken a strike vote. So plenty of us are taking strike votes. But I think one of the things that we're going to be addressing going forward, I think with all unions in the airline industry, is making sure that the board adheres to proper standards and grants releases to strike, based on the statutory standard, which isn't the size of the carrier or anything else. It's whether or not further mediation will be fruitful or not. So I think we have a lot of cards to play in our arsenal. But overall, I think once we, sort of get the company's economic proposal, move into this next phase of negotiations, we're going to see, quite a bit of power that the flight attendant group has. And it's going to take, both a combination of very likely very strong strike vote combined with, pretty much constant pressure, both in the media and, at the airports and so forth on the company to reach a good deal. So I think that's like the overall sort of framework on the strike vote, unless Julie wants me to cover anything else.
I think that's good. Joe, I think if we can have you talk a little bit more about, we've had a lot of questions about compensation, right? And kind of a lot of, what if the pilots get this percentage of a raise and we do not get similar, right? Also questions about profit sharing. Do you want to talk at all about where we're at with, I know you said we haven't received anything back from the economic proposal that we proposed yet. But I think we can talk also, the last time there were a lot of questions about retroactive pay. So just kind of an overall conversation about the compensation package.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I would characterize it that we're in the initial stages of economic bargaining. We've presented our initial proposal, which had a top out rate in the first year of, I think it was $92 an hour. I think it's fair to say that the company's conception of where that should land is going to be fundamentally different. And we're going to be very, very far apart on economics. We presented a full proposal that includes, profit sharing, includes all sorts of other economic items, including boarding pay and other economic demands, increased sick and vacation and so forth. So all of that kind of gets put together. And I think that, we have our financial analyst, Dan Akins, who, has long worked on the American US Airways contracts going way back. So he's very familiar in combating the company's economic analysis. But when you engage in these type of negotiations, the company is going to put a value on everything. And we'll look at, how much they're increasing the total flight attendant, compensation and labor costs. We'll be doing the same, except from the opposite perspective, where we're fighting to get the most money in flight attendants' pockets. In terms of, what else is going on in the industry and how does that impact our bargaining? I think overall we have a lot of flight attendant groups in bargaining. We have Southwest, who's been into mediation for a while. We've got the United Flight Attendants in bargaining. We recently got a deal at Spirit. Alaska's in bargaining, and many other carriers. I think in terms of moving forward towards bringing things to a head with an actual strike vote and the kind of pressure, I would put us, our negotiations up in the forefront, at least at this point in time, on that. In terms of the pilot deals, the pilots have their own trajectory in terms of economics and reaching a deal. And, you kind of look at what's happened at Delta in terms of the settlement there. And there's bargaining at United and American as well. I think the company has already pledged to put quite a bit of money in terms of economic improvements into the pilots. Obviously that's something we take into account in our bargaining. The company typically takes the position that there's a different sort of labor market and analysis there. You know, I think our position is it demonstrates you got plenty of money to spend on labor, and flight attendants have been on the front lines and damn well are intent on getting paid. So how it all shakes out isn't really going to be based on us telling the company you need to give us what the pilots get. It's going to be based on pure old-fashioned power and how much we're able to beat out of them through a strike vote and other forms of economic pressure. So, I mean, that's how it goes in any negotiations. And I think that we're going to have to, you know, I think one thing is clear. You know, as the great abolitionist leader Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. So without a, you know, sort of strong demand and strike vote and other action to back it up, you know, then we're not going to end up with what flight attendants deserve. But if we all get together, which is going to happen, and put a lot of pressure on there, then you know, we're going to get every penny that we can fight for and win.
Perfectly said, Joe. So how can the flight attendants help us to get the contract we all deserve? Definitely sign up for the contract action team. Say you want to be involved in these actions that we're doing. Tomorrow is a terminal walk. We'll have another terminal walk in June. We will have more pickets. So please, we do need everyone to be involved in order for us all to get the contract that we all deserve. Thank you, Joe. We're going to move on to a presentation of some of the items that we've recently been talking about at the table. And first, we're going to talk about Section 10 scheduling, and Reese is going to go over some of those points.
All right, so we've given some pretty good updates on scheduling through hotlines and these town halls. So this is going to be pretty brief, but it's going to talk more about what we've been working on since then. And so we're pretty close right now on the TTS exception to open time limits. We've also called it more negative days, and it's we're working with the company to figure out the final details of it, but we're very, very close. We have agreed to TTS and UBL use for reserves, out of base UBL, and last minute call out UBL for line holders are all agreed to. We are still apart on the programming timeline, so we're working through those details. We are also finalizing return to work language, specifically how reserve credit fits into returning to work if you come back for a partial month. There was a new reserve credit element that we added to Section 12, and the reserve credit will be if you are available for 15 days on reserve, or if you are able to get 40 hours during that month. Similar to how you earn sick or vacation, it's the same idea. You would now, if that's also your reserve month, get reserve credit for it. We've also agreed in concept to ETB double dipping outside of the footprint of the trip that you are pay protected for. So today you can only double dip using TTS or UBL. Going forward, you will be able to double dip using ETB as long as the trip you pick up is outside of the footprint of the trip that you're pay protected for. We're still holding on a few items as well. These are big things that the company hasn't budged on, but we're also not budging on, including the dropping down to 30 hours outside of PBS. So using TTS, UBL, and ETB, you'd be able to drop down to 30 hours. We're holding on 13 days off in a 31-day month for reserves. So the idea that all reserves, no matter what month it is, would be available for 18 days of reserve availability. UBL trading, so being able to use UBL to trip improve, and also the staffing chart. The staffing chart that we proposed was the pre-COVID levels of staffing across all of our aircraft. We are also holding on limiting the ETB straight drop into open time, and we want to preserve the ability for you to trade using trips that you picked up in ETB and put them into TTS, creating chains. But the idea of just a straight drop, you picked up something in ETB and now you're just dropping it into TTS, it raises that open time percentage and it affects other people. So we're trying to eliminate that. We have also proposed incentivized steps. So what we're working on now is rescheduling, and we're holding firm on everything that we have already, but we are proposing some incentivized steps for crew scheduling to follow to create more order during irregular operations or during periods of staffing irregularities like the end of the month. So we had a proposal for 150% of carryover sequences that are picked up from open time that originate in one month and carry over into the next month. We've also recently proposed mandates for the company to offer calling in well or offer red flag or black flag if there are those irregular ops or staffing irregularities happening before they would start rescheduling line holders. We are also exploring the option for line holders to volunteer for additional flying at the end of their sequence and be paid 150% for whatever they were assigned. Again, I want to emphasize this would be a volunteer option that a line holder would opt into if they're willing to work a trip, like kind of like a double up right after they are released from their first trip. And also, the other thing that we're working on in scheduling right now is electronic notifications. There are parts of the contract that currently require communication between flight attendants and crew scheduling, phone calls, and so we're looking to explore electronic notifications for some of those areas, not all of them. Particularly, we are not interested in electronic notification for rescheduling, anything related to rescheduling, and the parts of reserve where you have to have positive contact today, such as when you're on your wrap and crew scheduling has to call you during your wrap to assign you or award you something. Those would remain phone call areas, but things like calling in sick or deadheading, if you wanted to not take the scheduled deadhead, but maybe fly to your commuter city or just tell them you're not taking your deadhead at all. Those options, instead of being a phone call like they are today, would be an opportunity for you to like use an electronic notification so you don't have to speak to anybody on the phone. That's it for scheduling.
All right, thank you, Reese, for those updates. And did you mention transition days?
I did a little bit when we talked about the staffing irregularities. And
I just wanted to make sure we said we are not interested in the transition days that the company has proposed, and we haven't changed our minds on that at all.
Yeah.
So, all right, great. All right, let's move on to section 12, and that's reserve. And Wendy Oswald is going to walk us through a few of the items there.
Yep. So we've reached some agreements with the company about allowing out of base UBL flying. So today it will process, or in the contract, it will process in-base line holders and reserves on days off. So when we say in-base and out of base, we're saying line holders and reserves on days off. So in-base first and then out-of-base UBL before it starts processing aggressive reserves. If it's less than minimum call out, we have also agreed that it will go to in-base, then out-of-base, and then aggressive reserves before assigning to a standby. Today it assigns to a standby and only aggressive reserves have that ability to do less than minimum call out. We've also agreed that aggressive 40 hours. Today, no matter how you get 40 hours into your reserve call out of time, once you have those hours, if you aggressive bid, you will be awarded the sequence, but those hours will not go towards your reserve call out of time. We've reached an agreement with the company that in the future, those hours, once you have 40 hours in your reserve call out of time, you will have a complete bucket of aggressive hours. So if you have been awarded or signed in rota, or you had vacation and you have 40 hours of reserve call out of time, but now you decide I'm on RAP and I want to go aggressive for a trip, that's going to be a total of 40 hours of aggressive flying. And it will continue to go to your reserve call out of time. Once you hit that reserve aggressive hours of 40, anytime after that will not go to your call out of time. We've agreed that management will be part of what's called POTA before line holders on days off. So when we get to just going to assigning flight attendants and priority of assignment, today management is not part of that. They will be part of that in the future before they're going to assign line holders on days off.
Wendy, before you go on.
Yes.
Okay, let's just clarify on that. This is management who are on our seniority list only.
Yes.
It will definitely we will never have a management person flying any of our trips who
Correct.
are not on our seniority list and are not qualified.
Right.
Meaning they go to CQ.
Right. So it's not just an FSM that's become qualified as a flight attendant. It is an FSM that has been hired as a flight attendant and has gone over to be a flight service manager. So they remain on our seniority list. So that's the only managers that will be part of that.
And this is after, it's basically POTA happens, and just to refresh everybody's memory on POTA, because a priority of assignment, and this is when you're out of all reserves in the base. Okay, this means that, you've got trips, you've used all your reserves basically that you have available, and now how are we going to cover that trip? So they've been brought into the process. We've added them in as to when they would be assigned a trip. So just wanted to make sure everybody realized that's when we're completely out basically of our reserves in the base.
Okay. So where we've made some movement is how Rota D is processed in 12K1F. Today, some of the steps that are processed for Rota D are grouped together and they go to a RAP A, then RAP B. And what we had proposed and they've agreed to is separating those steps. So instead of grouping, going into, do you have a trip tomorrow, a conflict that you've already been assigned a reserve trip, and then also being flown into your flex day together, there'll be separate steps. It'll look at RAP A for the earlier RAP and then the later RAP, and then move on to the next step. So it's separated those steps out, which will help hopefully with flight attendants and their assignments in Rota D.
So we're doing that because we really want less assignments into their flex days.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is the whole purpose of trying to separate those, because we really want to make sure everybody is used before we use flight attendant into a flex day.
Right. We are having discussions on holding trips out of Rota D to allow flight attendants to ballot and be awarded in UBL prior to going into using reserves. And again, that's also in lines with hopefully using less reserves and allowing more flight attendants the ability to get those trips that are in base, out of base, line holders and reserves on days off before being assigned or awarded for reserves. We also have had discussions on the RAPs. We've been proposing 3 RAPs, and the company has really pushed back and really wants 4 RAPs. So we're trying discussions on what is RAP D and making parameters for RAP D so that you're not flown into an early morning trip or starting an early morning trip when you've been up all night thinking you're going to get an all-nighter. So we're having discussions on how to process that. Maybe RAP D in certain bases would not be even a RAP possibly because they don't have overnight flights, or once the late night flights have departed, people on RAP D would be released from that RAP, so they're not being assigned early morning trips. We're still in discussions with that. It's not, we just started that actually. We are holding on, Reese touched on it, 18 days of availability, even if it's a 31-day month, a 30 or 31-day month. Flex day pay protection. if you're flown into your flex day and you have picked up a trip and you should get pay protection, we're still holding for that for actual. We're also holding for flex day usage, limiting how either being flown into a flex day or limiting flex days altogether. We're still in talks on how to work that out.
That's a lot, huh?
It is.
All right, so I would say this, we've definitely made progress as far as reserve is concerned. We do have a lot of agreements in areas that we've been trying to achieve. We still have some that we're continuing to work on. I'd say the RAP-D has been our latest. We have actually been working on that for a while, trying to get the company to see the issue, because we hear it from the flight attendants on a very regular basis about getting the 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning sign-ins or report times for the RAP-D. So I think we all feel a little bit more positive as far as the conversation we had at the table the last time, that we're headed in the right direction with this for sure. So I know I was thinking in my head, so reserves have been added to TTS UBL, right? We've that's secured. The ASG clicks for all trips flown has been agreed to, right? The aggressive reserve hours only being hours that were awarded to you as aggressive reserve. That's been agreed to. Limiting the flex day usage as far as to 2 days, and then, making sure everybody in the base, basically kind of like standby, that everybody else in the base has been used into it. So it would limit them from going into your flex day if it was like a 3rd flex day. That's been agreed to. We also made some progress in when you are assigned into a flex day, making sure that, we've had some issues with trying to get mutual agreement to what other day you should get off. Crew schedules like, no, that doesn't work for them. And we have an agreement that if we can't come to a mutual agreement, it will automatically be your next day on reserve after you were used into flex day. So we definitely have made a lot of progress, I would say, in reserve, and we're still continuing to work on it, but we've seen progress at the table in the last couple of months. So thanks, Wendy. I know that was a lot. All right, in March, we did bring back some of our tabled sections that we had put aside. One of them was section 6, crew accommodations, section 32, union business, section 34, safety and security, and section 37, general. So the company, last time we met, they did pass us back a few of those with some movement. And so we're going to, Susan, I think you're going to update us on a couple of those.
Right. The company did not pass back section 6 crew accommodations, so we have no update on that. They did pass back section 32, which is union business. And the only 2 open issues in that section are the printing of the contract and how many are printed. The company is proposing 5% printed contracts, but giving QR codes and abilities for flight attendants to print their own. So we just have to settle on the number that we want printed. We know a lot of flight attendants do want to see it electronically to either print on their own or keep in their tablet or their own computer. And that's also the most updated version always of the contract. So we're still working on that. And we were looking for some additional Sabre access for our contract and scheduling chair. We're still in talks over what that access will be and how they get it. So that's still ongoing. They did not give us a written proposal for section 34 safety. The only 2 open issues in that are updated language on communicable diseases and adding some type of placeholder for a fatigue risk management program. While we did not get a written proposal back, they did tell us that they are not interested in either of those. So we'll have to see what happens there. And Kelly.
Yeah, they also returned back to us general. And in that we did, I think we all feel there was some substantive movement from the company specific to the commuting language. So in today's world, it's 2 flights on an American Airlines carrier We're not very competitive within the industry. We have a very poor commuter policy program. So one of the things that we have proposed is grabbing other airline travel. So the company did do some movement our way on that. They do want to include other airlines. We have not responded back to them yet in a written format. We're trying to figure out what that looks like, because there's gonna have to be some type of substantiation like we have today for our own metal. But we're gonna figure that out. And also, we want to see if you travel on another airline or our airline, that we can blend those two together. Currently, we have the 2 flights, so we'd like to see maybe, you know, one other airline, one us. If you do strictly other airline or strictly us. The other substantive movement that has come our way is under our current year program. The first flight of year 2 has to cancel. Load factor doesn't come into it. If it's a full flight, you're just kind of SOL. So the movement that they come our way is at that first flight, as long as there were some seats available upon check-in for that, which would have been 24 hours prior to departure. We haven't figured out what that magic number is going to be, but that would qualify under the commuter policy. So that's pretty big. So hopefully we'll have a rich commuter program coming out of this.
We definitely need some changes because of what's happened since this contract was negotiated, right? There's been a lot of changes, especially with our passengers being able to move to other flights and no change fees, right? It's really harmed our
We have
commuters quite a bit.
displacements and base
Yes.
closures.
Yeah. So we have to see a change there. All right, we're going to go to the questions, but before we get started with the questions, I did want to address one issue, and that is the speaker issue. We have definitely heard from our speakers quite a bit since we put out the tentative agreement that we reached with the company. I have stated this, I think, on just about the last 3 town halls. We will be opening that back up. That section back up once we get done with reserve and scheduling, because there has been changes to the aircrafts as far as the 3 classes of service. Now, the company announced since the tentative agreement that we will be going to a 2-class service only, no first class any longer. And so we will be opening that language back up once we're done with reserve and scheduling. So I know we did have a lot of questions from speakers as to what's going on with it, and we have not opened it back up yet, but once we do, we will make sure that you know. All right, and staffing was another one. Obviously, we are proposing in negotiations, staffing, pre-COVID staffing, and we do have a staffing grievance, presidential grievance filed. They are striking for arbitrators. For those, we have actually a few presidentials, 2 presidentials for our staffing. And so we will continue to work on that, but we have heard you loud and clear. We are well aware that the staffing we have now is not enough, to say the least, for our flights. So we will continue to work on that. All right, so we're going to start off here with our questions. And looks like our first question, Brian, you're going to help me out with this one. Is the compensation package considered one negotiating item, or are we able to potentially get increased per diem if hourly wage does not increase? Does that make sense?
Yes, Melissa, it does make sense. Although the 2 items are in the compensation package in and of itself, they are separately negotiated items. So one can exist without the other. So we are working on both of those items in the overall compensation package to increase those. That is our goal, and we hope to have that out to you again when the company presents their rebuttal to the compensation package, and see where we stand from there.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, next question. Why do we have to be industry standard and not industry leading as we once were? All right, wow. Industry leading is definitely what we are negotiating for. And it's something that is definitely an expectation that has been said to the company, that we are negotiating for industry leading. Of course, you have to look at the total package of our contract, not just each individual item, to get the overall value of our contract. And we do know that since the last contract was negotiated, there have been some things that have changed in the industry, such as boarding pay, right? Delta got boarding pay recently because they were being unionized. Of course, this is what normally happens when this happens at Delta. And so we absolutely will be negotiating for industry leading and making sure that the contract we put out to our members is that. All right, next, 2 things in our contract. We should have at least 5% profit sharing. Also, these ODANs should be worth 10 hours instead of 6. Also, we should be able to sign in for our trips 2 hours before. All right, Kelly, you want to help us out with that one?
Sure. Okay, so we did make a proposal for profit sharing. You can check that out on the website. And we fashioned it after what the maintenance has currently, and they actually fashioned it off of Delta. So we're looking at 10% for the first 2.5 billion and 20% outside of that. As far as the ODANs being worth 10 hours instead of 6, that's not something that we've entertained as a committee. That is very niche flying. A lot of our members enjoy that flying, and forcing it into a 10-hour bucket would probably see the end of that type of flying. And we weren't willing to do that. As far as signing in for 2 hours before your trip, you're going to kind of smack against some legality issues and things on that. And we kind of want to keep it with our hour 15 that we currently have.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelly. All right. Has there been any progress on allowing future retirees to convert accrued sick time to a healthcare spending account? Susan?
That has been in our proposal for a flight attendant to use their accrued sick bank and convert that at their current hourly rate into a retiree-only HRA. We do not have a response yet from the company on that proposal, and that's in the economic, when they reply in the economics.
All right, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Mhm.
I'd be saving my sick time. All right, next question. Have we considered negotiating full pay credit from report to release? There's a long list here. I'm not going to go through that, but Susan, you want to talk about that a little bit?
And we are proposing boarding pay for that. And that would be for the entire, half of your hourly was our proposal for the entire boarding time, similar to Delta with a few changes.
And then we also propose that also for holding time, right? The same rate.
Same rate, holding time at half your hourly rate, which would take into account if you are boarding and then are held on the ground for whatever delay.
Right. Thanks, Susan. Okay, let's move on down. We're going to get into another category, expenses. All right, is APFA negotiating for higher position 1 lead pay on narrow body aircraft? I think I'm just going to leave it at that because it's a long question. Brian, you want to answer this?
For domestic narrow body, we've not increased the per diem or the galley pay or lead pay for that. And I understand that within your question, you were asking about the number of seats. Before the 319 was retrofitted, it was equal in seating to the 320 as well as the 737. With the retrofit, there are fewer seats on there. But overall for domestically, it is the same. We have pushed for an increase on IPD for the galley, which is the only increase we'll see for that.
All right. See here. Okay.
We did also propose for the 321 Neo, the one that has 20 seats, that you would get, I think it's an extra $1.
I think it's 425.
425,
Yes. Yeah.
So it'd be an extra $1 on that aircraft, the one with 20 seats, the retrofit.
Right. So that is the narrow body. So that is the only
Yes.
increase. Yeah. All right. Indesirable 1-1 trips with long layovers that occasionally touch 3 calendar days. When the pilots get 5-hour calendar day, the company changed the trips to optimize them. This results in tacking on turns after long flights to maximize duty days. Why are we pursuing this, knowing that it will detrimentally affect the quality of trips? Reese, you want to talk about that?
Sure. So, we are aware, we talked to the pilots, we know what happened with theirs, but we are also representatives of the membership, and the membership has asked for this. So, but we agree with you. We know that, increasing the rigs is going to change trip construction, and so we are being really careful with our proposals that each rig, as it changes, that the trip construction can't change too much, because like you said, we don't want to affect the quality of the trips too much. Of course, pay is important, but the company they're trying to run a business, and so they're going to make the trips get as much use out of the flight attendants as they can to match those rigs. So we're keeping all of that in mind. We're being very careful. We know exactly what you're talking about, and we're being cautious.
All right, thank you, Reese. Okay. Can we please ask for the jump seat to be exempt from weight restrictions? This is so essential for commuters, and other airlines do have this policy in place. Brian, you want to address that?
Yes, we have asked for the return of that language that was originally in we used to have. Right now, we are, that is in our proposal to have the weight and balance restrictions put back into place.
And they can see that on the website,
Yes.
right? So also just want to remind everyone that all of this information, where we are at, what we have proposed, what the answer back from the company is on the APFA website under negotiations.
And it's section 37 general, that's where you'll find that.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Brian. Delta United and JetBlue all offer up to 1 year baby bonding leave after giving birth, where they keep insurance and flight benefits, while we only offer 6 months of leave with just flight benefits. If we opt to take the 6-month leave, we lose our insurance. What are we doing in the new contract to bring our maternity leave up to industry standards? Brian?
We have proposed 36-month with active rates for that, which will encompass that question. And to regarding the flight benefits, those fall under company policy. So APFA does not have the ability to dictate that, that since that is a company policy, that would be something that the company would have to change within their policy program. But as for the baby bonding portion of that, we have proposed 36 months for that.
Thanks, Brian.
Just to clarify, baby bonding itself is not proposed to 36 months. It's the active rates of
Yeah.
insurance. So, because in your question, you had asked about losing your insurance if you took the baby bonding 6-month leave. So now you would maintain your insurance at active rates for up to 36 months. But the actual maternity leave would still be 6 months.
Thanks for the clarification. All right. Will flight attendants be able to do the strike vote on a website like the pilots did? I think this would really help us get a higher vote turnout. We agree. We could have the CAT team in terminals on flights with a QR code with the websites to vote. And I've got Josh sitting next to me, who has been working with our National Ballot Committee Chair on what type of vote this would be for the strike vote. So I think, Josh, you want to just update everybody?
Sure. First of all, I love the forward-thinking mentality of the person who submitted this question. Come help us with it.
Yeah.
You'd be a great addition to the team. So we've been working really hard on returning to electronic balloting, especially as it pertains to our contract. We see a higher rate of participation when organizations use electronic balloting. So we're working really closely with the National Ballot Committee and our Yes Elections, our election provider, and we'll be sending out some more information the closer we get.
Thank you, Josh. All right, next question. Are we going to fight for hotels for commuters? Why don't we work with the company to give higher priority to those who strictly commute to work, like an indicator D2W or some sort of D1 for commuting purposes, but below D1? What is the union doing for commuters? I know we heard a little bit from Kelly about this, but Reese, I think you're gonna help us out with the rest of it.
Yeah, so like Kelly talked about, some big changes that we have, worked with, proposals with the commuter policy language, including other airlines, the full flight. Kelly went through all of that. More specifically, within hotels for commuters, we have secured hotels for commuters who are based in DFW when they come for CQ training. Today they have to get their own hotel, but going forward, the company would provide a hotel for all flight attendants when they come to CQ. We are also proposing some improvements to the parking payout situation. So today, you're a commuter and you park at your home base, home airport. The parking reimbursement that you get is based on how much it costs to park at your base. And some of those numbers are really substantially different. And so you actually end up paying a lot out of pocket to park at your home airport. So we have proposed that it would be the amount that it costs to park at your base plus $75. So that would be the amount that you're reimbursed as part of our economics proposal. Again, we haven't gotten a response. Also, for those that do not park, we have proposed that you would get $100 as a reimbursement for whatever alternative form you might take, whether it's public transportation, Ubers, etc. Also, for in deadheading language, so section 16, we proposed some changes to the start and end of trip deadheading, such as self-booking. So I talked about this a little bit with the electronic notification. You would be able to self-book, so change your own flight to your commuter city, or instead of having to go through crew scheduling or the agents and having to stand by like you do today. That would all be on your own. And we're also proposed full pay protection if your deadhead at the start of your trip were to cancel or delay, causing you to be removed from that sequence you were going to base to, you were deadheading to base to work. Today, you're removed and there's no pay protection. So our proposal is that you would, as long as you chose, and again, this would be a flight attendant option, so you could choose to not deadhead in now and just be removed without pay, or you can choose to go to base later the next day. If the flight were to cancel, you are connected with your trip, the same trip that you were supposed to work, or a different trip, and you would receive full pay protection for the trip that you lost. So again, because we recognize that no fault of your own, were you on that deadhead that had to cancel or delay. So those are some big improvements that we have for our commuting flight attendants.
Okay, so that was a lot.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to, so that we can help them if they want to go read it, right?
Okay.
Section
Section
16
is
for deadheading, right? They could go and look in section 37, but I don't believe we have the latest on section 37 yet. They can see what we've proposed, but not the response yet because we're not final with that. And then we also talked about parking.
Is training, and then parking would be section 4.
There we go. So 29 would be the hotel room, and section 4. So 4 sections, talking about the enhancements for our commuters.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Reese. That was a lot. Guess what? Your name is on the next one too.
Oh,
So
okay.
take a quick little break while I read it.
Okay.
Okay. In the last town hall, we mentioned having secured language for reserves that all trips phone would receive clicks. Can you elaborate? Does this mean all trips assigned, whether Rota or Rota D, get clicks, or is this including all trips that flight attendants bid for as well?
Okay, so again, we are representative of the greater membership. So what we heard, the majority of the feedback through our surveys, emails, and speaking to flight attendants and union leadership is that people wanted clicks for everything that they flew. So this was why this was one of our most important items in reserve, and we're very proud that we were able to secure it. To elaborate, yes, it would be clicks for anything that you were assigned out of Rota or Rota D, whether it was aggressive or an assignment. And this is going to benefit those that today might be senior on the reserve and you're bidding in Rota, and then you choose to not bid for something and you're on call. You might have 50, 60 hours because you've been working, but because you've been getting all your trips out of Rota, you're first in line to get a trip on Rota D as well. Likewise, for our more junior flight attendants who might get assignments in ROTA, same thing. They might have 50, 60 hours all from assignments on ROTA. They're now first on the list on ROTA D as well to be called. Going forward, both of these individuals, senior, junior, will have clicks and it will balance the assigning of trips so that it's not always the same people being called out. You can kind of really track how you're on the list, what number you are, and also the number of hours that you have will correlate to how often you're worked.
All right,
Like
so
that.
you just made me think of something. One of the things that we are definitely negotiating for, and we've passed a document across to the table already to the company, is increasing transparency for reserves while they're on reserve in real time. It's been something that we've heard about probably for at least 5 or 6 years. At least, and it is something definitely we are working on and hopeful that we will get some strong language in there and actually changes to the reports so that our reserves, especially when you're bidding in ROTA, you can kind of see where you're at on the list, right? ROTA D, you also want to have real-time information. So just wanted to add that in. As you were talking about something, it reminded me, we haven't talked about that in a while. Okay. Next, in the JCBA, it is written that the BLOAs are awarded to line holders first, then reserves regardless of system seniority. We were told at a union meeting that was done in hopes of getting the agreement passed as quickly as possible due to the merger. With our new contract being negotiated, will that be corrected? All leaves offered should be in strict seniority order. If more senior flight attendants are forced onto reserve, or more junior line holders should not be awarded the leave. Kelly, you want to take that one?
Sure. So the VLOAs actually came from the LA side, and it was by status, line holder first, reserve second. The reason for that is so people wouldn't get pulled down to reserve. So that language was kept in the JCBA. We are not modifying that language in this negotiations. The only thing that we did change on that, and it had been agreed to, is that when they do offer them to reserves, which means not enough line holders took it, if a reserve bids and is awarded it, they would not get reserve credit for that month, what they currently do today.
Kelly. All right, so the next question is they want status, and let's see, status on pay during boarding. Well, that's part of our economic package, which we have not received back from the company yet. I'm going to let you answer the rest of them here, Kelly. Sorry, I started. Status of picking up trips out of base. I think we pretty much covered that.
Yeah, Wendy nailed that one.
Yeah. Status of the return of vacation week we lost.
We are asking for substantive increases in the vacation accruals, more on the low end, but also on the high end as well.
All right, and status of penalizing the cartel for illegitimate trip trading.
We have reached an agreement with a company that we would mutually agree upon a metric to ensure that flight attendants are not circumventing. So it's gonna have to be a mutually agreed process between the two parties, but it is a way to curtail, if not stop curtail behavior.
Thanks, Kelly. All right, this next one is about out of base pickups. Again, so this flight attendant doesn't understand how allowing out of base pickups after UBL, but before reserves get a shot at the trips is a good thing. Why are you taking trips away from reserves? Kelly, you want to elaborate a little bit on where we're at with this?
That was really important for us as well, which is one of the reasons why we held so very long to have aggressive reserves get a bite at it first. However, with the programming issues that we were coming up to, it was a really hard weighing for us, but it ultimately came down to, we want to get the reserve numbers down. How do we get the reserve numbers down? We have to have less open time going into reserves. So that was kind of our driving force on it. You know, let's go ahead and let people pull that time out of open time. So we'll have less time going to reserves. So we'll have less reserves at the end of the day.
Yeah. And we have received a lot of emails from flight attendants who want out of base pickup.
And on the survey.
Right, and on the survey. So it was on high priority for a lot of our flight attendants. Okay. All right. I know I see Kelly's name on a lot of these. I was trying to figure out if I could give you a little break here. Why do you not support being able to pick up from TTS during vacation time? What about picking up red flag during vacation time? People's plans can change, and allowing flexibility to pick up through TTS enhances flexibility. Sure.
So vacation awards, as we all know, are based on seniority. So if I'm senior and I hold a December vacation, and now I'm able to go into TTS and use my seniority again to take all the red flags out of open time or take trips out of open time that would otherwise go to people who are junior. We just felt you have a vacation for a reason. We need our vacation because we are all overworked, and we felt it best to keep the ability to pick up on vacation out of ETB and take it from other flight attendants who might need a break versus the company.
Thanks. Yep, I think this is one that definitely there's two sides to it, right? And we know there are people who want this, but we also know seniority, like you said, this is giving somebody super seniority in
Right.
it. So, all right. Okay, I'm going to this one. Why is the purser position being devalued? I don't see an increase in purser pay, and we are working multiple positions, especially in IPD flights and transcons, going from a 3-class cabin to a 2-class cabin across the board, and now calling it lead pay is nonsense. We need our full staffing back. We agree we need our full staffing back. So Kelly, you want to take this one on?
I don't even see it.
Okay, it's number 54. Basically, we haven't devalued the purser pay. We just left it where it is at because it is truly in line and higher than a lot of other purser pays across the industry. And so remember, when we do an economic package, we're doing it in totality, right? We're asking for a lot of things in this economic package that we don't have, such as sit time pay, such as boarding pay, such as reserve override. So really, when we're looking at the economics of this contract, we take everything into consideration and where we want to put the money. And here we felt the purser pay was already really pretty much highest in the industry.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
For IPD flying, we did propose that even if you don't have a purser call,
Yes.
you do get that full value of the pay. So that was kind of where we wanted to put our money to,
Yeah.
to get rid of the disparity.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, let's see where we're at here, timing wise. Okay, we're going to take just a couple more questions. If anybody has anything really that they're dying to answer here, I'm willing to skip around, but I'm trying to find a few of these that we haven't touched on. Okay, we can take this one. The Hard 40 has changed the flexibility of this job. At some point in everyone's career at American Airlines, this will make a difference. Why is APFA not addressing this issue? When do you want to take that one?
Yes, we actually have been addressing this issue since the start of passing scheduling, and we have been proposing that after PBS that you would be able to go down to 30 hours in TTS, UBL, and ETV. We just are continuing to hold our position, and the company is holding their position to maintain the 40 hours. And that's where we're at.
Right. We are addressing it though. Yep. That's based on the survey. What we saw from the survey was flight attendants wanted that flexibility of going below 40. And a lot of them said actually they come back up over the 40, but they wanted that for the flexibility of their schedule. So that's what we've heard. All right, just a couple more here, you guys. Presently, we can't make speaker and non-speaker selections in our daily bid, and speaker positions are processed first, unlike in UBL where we can mix them. Additionally, is there talk about how 2 open positions are going to be processed. Rhoda currently awards the highest position open under the speaker bid, but as a senior reserve, if I want another position, my seniority should be honored for that. Wendy, you want to take that on?
Sure. So, we didn't propose a change to rota processing for speakers, but what we are proposing is that, more visibility and transparency in, prior to rota running, so that you will be able to see how many flight attendants, how many speakers, how many trips, so that you'll be able to more strategically bid or not bid for your trips, based on who's going to be available and how many days they're going to be available for. So prior to rota running, and that is part of our transparency request with reports. The position processing, we did not make a proposal to change the way they are processed, but if you separate and you make your bid specific and separate each one, it should process in your seniority order, your position.
Thanks, Wendy. All right, so I know we weren't able to get to all of the questions. We do have quite a few of them here that are about compensation. And obviously we haven't received our economic proposal back from the company yet, so we don't have any more to offer you until we do get that. And I think you all are aware of where you can find the information as to what we have proposed in our economic proposal on the negotiations website. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. It's been really great to see so many questions come in. We do want to remind everyone, though, we are at the point in negotiations where we have proposed what we are trying to achieve in each section, and we are fighting for those items, and especially the economics. We hope that you all have seen that. But we will have probably the next town hall after we receive the economic proposal back, is what I'm guessing at this point. So please just keep up to date by reading the hotlines that we send out after our negotiations. And also when we have our terminal walks, please make sure you sign up for the contract action team and help get the message out. Every time you're on the jump seat, please make sure that, especially if you've already been through some of this before, because you've been working here for a while and you've been through a strike vote before, that you're having those conversations with the flight attendants on the jump seat. It's really important that we're all talking about what's happening in negotiations and where we're headed to. Joe, do you have any last minute thoughts that you'd like to say before we sign off today?
No, nothing in particular. I mean, look, it's going to be an interesting time coming up, and I think if we all stick together, we're going to get a good contract here. So
I agree. It's going to require all 26,000 though. It's not about the 7 of us sitting, eight of us sitting at the table. It is truly going to take all 26,000 members to be engaged and for us to get the contract that we deserve. So please stay informed, and we will keep you up to date when we get more information to give you. Thank you all for joining us today, and fly safely.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.